sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're at it again, and it's been so long. I'm so excited for it. We are live in Denver, Colorado, inside the new place. How's that? I'm really excited about it. My co-host Chase Stepp is here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Wherever you may be watching and listening, thanks for making us part of your day. It's so good to be back. Lots and lots of activity all throughout NHL trade deadline, NFL free agency. So much of it has gone on since the whole move. And but I'm excited for us to be back up on the show and really just talk about it. This has just been It's been interesting for the most part, but it's been pretty wild throughout the whole entire free agency process.
First off, I want to say welcome back. I'm glad that you were able to move safely and get in there. Secondly, nice dog you got there. I see him on the couch and everything.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yep.
And thirdly, it's a lot to cover. It's mostly going to be NFL news and NFL talk because we just had free agency start on Monday and officially – for the whole newly year start on Wednesday, and every move that was made is officially final. And we got a lot of free agents that are still available, and a lot of them that have signed to new teams that we did not expect to. So it'll be interesting.
Well, and I know you've been busy with at least with the news report with everything that's just been kind of going on here. But before we even get into the entire core of it, let's just kind of talk about what really had happened all throughout the first 3 days of free agency. So my biggest thing is that when I looked at this initially, there was a few things that really kind of stood out to me. And so the big part of this was watching the Pittsburgh Steelers going out, and they went and got some offensive pieces. Now they went and got DK Metcalf. Now, what the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking like, and this is probably going to be the same team, they loaded up a lot of defense. And they're probably going to be, yet again, another team that loads up on defense once more. But the only thing is, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they need a quarterback. And just earlier, they ended up getting Mason Rudolph. Do I like it per se? Not as much. I mean, I get it as far as a backup role for Mason Rudolph, but that's as good as you're going to get. So, in my opinion, when I start looking at this, I truthfully think it's interesting. So, one of the things that I talk about is that chemistry is important. So when you don't have the chemistry, that's the part that I think is one that you cannot leave out. So anytime I watch certain moves, I look at, okay, how is this going to work? How is this going to translate? And what I'm seeing from right now from a lot of teams, you are starting to see them really load up like ridiculously, but then you also are starting to see the teams realistically going and getting depth pieces. So to me, the Pittsburgh Steelers going and getting DK Metcalf, yes, they get a star receiver, but then they immediately paid him. You know who ended up doing that kind of work? That was the Denver Broncos. When they got Russell Wilson, they immediately paid him before they ended up watching him on the field. What the Steelers right now look like amongst other teams, they look like a team that I'm a little worried about. I'm not even saying that as a team that can be doing so much damage. I'm talking about a team that you fully invest this thing, and who knows if this is going to go anywhere. I doubt it. This is the part in me that I have to be sincerely honest. Pittsburgh, they lost their running back. They got Jaylen Warren. They probably may end up drafting a running back, but I'm watching their offensive line, and it's not good, which is why the quarterback under center for this specific team, whoever they go and get, because Russell Wilson, he was talking up in Cleveland. And so there's no deal yet, but they're having discussions. So you'd think he's still on the table. Then you would think Aaron Rodgers would be up and in the table. But here's the problem about Aaron Rodgers. And I'll get to a little bit more about him later on in the show. But Aaron Rodgers, to me, you've seen exactly with what he looked like with the Jets. And then the last year with Green Bay. I mean, it's kind of a roll the dice type of moment. You roll the dice, who knows exactly what this is going to look like. But all I know is with Pittsburgh, there is a ton of toxicity that's going to be in this locker room. And do you really think Mike Tomlin is going to deal with all that himself? I mean, just look at this team. You saw with how good that they were by the start of the year. And then they crash-landed and pummeled themselves. That's what's hard about this whole thing. I just find it really strange with this situation in Pittsburgh. And I liked Pittsburgh. They're a proud organization built on physical toughness. They were built on, we'd never fired so many coaches in our history, and Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. But if that's what you're harping on this entire time, and you don't end up getting pieces that's going to help you to get over the top, good luck. Pittsburgh is just an interesting organization as of today with the DK Metcalf trade, and then who knows what they're going to have at quarterback. But so far, it's Mason Rudolph. And if you think that you're going to end up going through with Mason Rudolph in the AFC North, when I said specifically you cannot be mediocre in this division, that's going to be interesting. So I wanted to talk about this as well during the entirety of the free agency because I think it's been great. But there's been a bunch of teams that's pointed out to me. So the Minnesota Vikings, they really loaded up on a lot of players. They go and get Jonathan Allen. They go and get Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. They get both those Indianapolis interior offensive linemen, and I think it's going to be great because the question mark we all have been asking is what's the deal and what is the status with J.J. McCarthy? And I think he's gonna play. That's their quarterback. I've been saying it for a while. Why don't you just roll this experiment out with J.J. McCarthy? I watched him in preseason before the injury, and I think he's got a lot of positive upside. And so Minnesota, it looks like they really got serious. But you know what? You got to build upon that. I mean, you won 14 games last season. You didn't win a playoff game, but you know what? No worries there. You will get a playoff win. I don't think they'll repeat what last year was because Chicago got serious at the offensive line. The Packers, I know, are kind of an interesting team, but they're patient. They still try to win games. And the Detroit Lions, I mean, they lost a lot of coaches. They lost a couple of really good players. But yet they still have really good players on the roster. So I can't even make of anything with the Detroit Lions either. But that NFC North looks very competitive. And I don't think they'll win 14 games. I think they might be about 11 at best. It's tough. It's competitive. And I think the NFC North is going to be exciting to watch. I live here in Denver. And the Denver Broncos right now get Evan Ingram, Talanoa Hufanga, and they end up getting Dre Greenlaw. It tells me a lot that one of the top defenses in the league just got better. They went and got, a bunch of these really good guys for at least for depth, And Talanoa Hufanga, let me just tell you this. He's a very good safety. And the problem of it is that, San Francisco, they had the injury bug, which happens to everybody. And I think he is a sneaky signing because who do they have right now? They got Brandon Jones, who's a very good safety. You pair them together after you moved on from Justin Simmons, who's a free agent right now. After you moved on from him, you go and get Talanoa Hufanga, and this is actually perfect on top of second-year Riley Moss and on top of Defensive Player of the Year, Pat Surtain. That's a very good secondary for Denver. So they get these underrated signings, and then they go and get Evan Ingram, the tight end, who, by the way, had a meeting with both the Broncos and the Chargers, and they were both about the same. But he decided to go to Denver instead. And you know what? It would have been fine on either side because Denver, I trust Evan Ingram more than I trust their other tight end, Adam Troutman. And even when they had Greg Dulcich, they could not get any of the tight ends right. I watched Adam Troutman, and I wasn't impressed. But getting Evan Ingram, since he's joined the Jags, he's had the most amount of catches right behind Travis Kelce. He was number 2 interceptions, and he's also been very impactful. So you go and get an offensive tight end that's going to give you first down merchants, and that's also going to be a very good threat in the red zone. Denver's the team to watch. And there's been plenty of other teams that have also, come out of the woodwork. Because you're watching with, teams that are kind of reshaping and rebuilding themselves. Now, Seattle, they lose DK Metcalf. They lose Tyler Lockett. They lost a couple of other players, but they still have 2 running backs I like. They need to fix up the offensive line, and they go sign Sam Darnold. So, and you have JSN. So Seattle, to me, could be an interesting team. But when I look at the San Francisco 49ers, tell me you got gutted without telling me you got gutted. 12 players left from the roster, and they only signed Demarcus Robinson. If this doesn't tell you that this is a rebuild, let me tell you something. You are going to be in a predicament where you're like the Cowboys. You're ending up having to pay Brock Purdy high premium money for an average player. I like Brock Purdy, but he does not move a needle for me. And what you're going to be is you're going to be the Dallas Cowboys with Dak Prescott, and you're going to be trapped. You're going to be stuck. You know what last year was for the Dallas Cowboys? It was a reality check. What did they do this offseason? Both Dak and CeeDee Lamb restructured their contract to open up money. Why? Because Dak knows I ain't worth $60 million. I'm not an A-plus quarterback. Not like Pat, not like Burrow or Allen or Lamar or Herbert or a lot of these other quarterbacks. But you are a very productive quarterback. That's what you are. But you pay high premiums for an above-average quarterback, good luck. It's not going to last well. And so Dallas had a reality check. San Francisco, if they go upon this with Brock Purdy, you are going to have a reality check too. If you're not already having one. Losing 12 players on that roster because they're one-year prove-it deals, or these are expiring contracts because you got to pay Nick, you got to pay Trent, you got to pay Purdy, and you got to pay McCaffrey. I've been saying this before. Why don't you just trade Christian McCaffrey? Go and get what you can off the compensation, because then that way you're not going to be front-loaded and trapped. So that's the part San Francisco is going to have to fight with. But man, another team to look out for, how about the Rams? I mean, Les Snead is just making wondrous moves. So free agency has been absolutely stunning, and I loved it. And it's not even quite done yet. Cooper Kupp's been released. David Andrews has been released. We're still waiting on Dallas Goedert and Mark Andrews if they're going to be traded. But there's so much happening. Chase, I will say, and even when I took a look at your Cleveland Browns, first of all, which I'm going to tell you this. For a perennial player, I know why it's so hard to move on from a player like that. I do. I just wouldn't do the move of what Jimmy Haslam, the owner, did, which is why people don't really do a ton of business with Jimmy Haslam. But in the end, Myles Garrett's locked up. You got to make him happy. It's the same way you feel with Max Crosby. You got to make him happy. But the difference is the Raiders had more of the money cap than what the Browns did, and they're having to restructure up this roster. Now, for the Browns, they're doing a bit of that, but you still got, at this point, Denzel Ward's probably not going to be moved. Greg Newsome, is he going to get a contract? There's some of these things, and I think this is what's fascinating about free agency, is because you are learning the value of the player, whether it's a trade for compensation and draft capital, or it's a signing that, depending on the year stretch and the front or the back end load of the caps, whether that's a good deal or that's a scary one that, like, my eyes pop out of my eye sockets when I literally see that. But that's what's so fun and fascinating about free agency.
Yeah, and it's weird because a lot of people want to look at the Cleveland Browns cap situation, and they say they're in cap hell for the next, 3 years, when they're really not. I took a look at the numbers, and this year it's going to be tough, but next year's when we start getting a little bit more money, and then by 2027 we're going to have like over $60 to $70 million in cap space because. Yep. Next year they reconfigured Jack Conklin's contract to free up $10 million and make him a free agent next year, giving you $15 million from that contract. Well, then Joel Bitonio's contract's up next year, and so is Wyatt Teller's. Now, Andrew Berry has been drafting offensive linemen every year for the past 3 years to take over for these guys and build the offensive line inside and out. And now you're going to free up over $25 million in cap with just the O-line. Well, David Njoku's on the last year of his contract. We don't know if we're going to re-sign him. He's probably going to draft another tight end this year and then move on from David Njoku because he's realizing that a lot of these guys are getting older and reaching the end of, the time where they need to be for these position players. And Deshaun will only be making, or like his cap hit next year, if they cut him, will be $30 million compared to the $70 million of what it is. And then the following year in 2027, it's going to be $23 million. And then by 2028, it'll be $17 million. So by the time 2027 hits, we're going to have a lot of these guys off our roster. We're going to be building younger. We're going to have a lot of these guys who we don't know what their cap hit is. And Denzel Ward is designed by 2027 to have a $2 million cap hit because they made it the final 3 years of his contract to where they would backload it and make it a smaller cap hit and the smaller base salary. And they front loaded it to where the first 2 years he makes less money. Then the next 3, or then the next 2 he would make a lot, and then finally the last 3, it's going to be a lot smaller. So I'm not too worried about how the cap situation is going. Andrew Berry's got this team positioned very well for the next few years. And I took a look at the salary, the salaries of our top players right now. And with JOK, Grant Delpit, Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, and the $28 million cap hit in Deshaun Watson for next year, if they cut him post June 1st, the $40 million cap hit, we're looking about, $180 million total. Cap that we're going to be spending. So that'll leave us with like $60-70 million in cap if we don't sign all these other players, and then probably $100 million or more by the time 2027 hits. So I'm not too worried about it. Worried about it for us. So
something actually popped up. I don't know if you saw the breakdown of it, but I think this is interesting. So, and it's coming out of Cincinnati. It's not anything that has to deal with T. Higgins or with Jamar Chase, because we know that right now, I would hate to be in Cincinnati with all these contract talks. But the word is, and it's surrounding Trey Hendrickson. And so teams across the league, this is what's being described. Teams across the league have shown interest in signing Trey Hendrickson to a new deal, which is about northward of $30 million per year. But the Bengals asking price is laughable. And this is through Diana Rossini. What she's confirming is Cincinnati is reporting seeking a first-round pick and other assets. Despite teams knowing the Bengals can't pay everyone, it's making Hendrickson the odd man out after receiving permission to seek a trade. So what this is, and this is what Diana has put together, what she summed up is the Bengals will most likely be forced to lower their asking price to something more reasonable and move on. This could play out similarly to the DK Metcalf trade, where once Seattle dropped their price, he was moved within 12 hours. So this is why when certain businesses, this is where you really evaluate certain businesses. Because remember, you have your CEOs. When it comes to most of these moves, you're trying to make the reasonable moves that are going to help you to build for the future. And again, Trey Hendrickson, a great asset. But we knew the minute the money went over to Mike Gesicki and the minute it went to BJ Hill, like, they are not going to pay the top dollar money. That's exactly what's happening. Though
and I think that they want a first rounder, like, in general. Like, I think that, like, asking a first rounder plus, like, asking a first rounder plus, like, 2 or 3 extra picks, it's a little crazy. And I can understand, like, with Trey Hendrickson, he's going to be 31 by the end of next season. So, like, you'd be hesitant to give up multiple picks.
He's coming off of 17 and a half sacks in back-to-back years. Which is why it's hard on this, but at the same time, you got to be reasonable with some of these asking prices. That's the thing about it, and what's so hard.
First rounder is all I would give up for him, because if you want a first rounder, I'll give you the first rounder, but I'm not going to give you a second, a third, or like a first and a fourth, or a first and a third.
Like, if you think about this, like, I will be fine with just the first rounder and probably some compensation picks. Because remember, you saw the teams that got compensation picks off of players they moved off from. I mean, for instance, the Chargers have like 4 6-round picks after the compensation when they moved off of Josh Palmer and they moved off of a couple of other teams. But that's kind of the blueprint of what Joe Ortiz does. And so when you see something like that, and there are other teams that also are interested up in it. So the teams that are interested were like the Packers, the Commanders, and there's probably going to be more. There may be much, much more if they lowered their asking price. So that's the kind of part. And DK Metcalf, what happened with Seattle? When they threw out that proposal, how many offers got back to them? Like, literally crickets. And then the minute they adjusted the asking price, within 12 hours, like half a day, he's now a Pittsburgh Steeler.
I mean, we're not talking about Trey Hendrickson being like a Myles Garrett level, because the reason why Myles is gaining such high praise for being like 2 first rounders is because not only was he 2 years younger, but like he is more of a dynamic and explosive guy than what Trey Hendrickson is. That's why he gained a lot of like momentum. And there was teams like the Eagles, the Lions, the Commanders, that were willing to give up 2 first rounders to get this man. And like, they were like, you want 2 first rounders? Here you go. We will give that to you. Howie Roseman was willing to give up 2 first rounders, Nolan Smith and AJ Brown to the Browns to get Myles Garrett. And the fact that he was able to, he was willing to throw in 2 players shows the tremendous depth at like how good of a player he actually is, and that he's worth this contract. But like Trey Hendrickson, if the Bengals want 3 to 4 picks for him, if you're just asking for 1 first rounder this year, the Bengals can get 2 defensive linemen for the price of 1. Like,
that's what I'm saying. How deep this draft is. Like, how could you not end up getting, a lot of these assets to where you could honestly re-up this thing?
Yeah, you could do James Pierce with the 17th pick, and then let's say you get it from the Commanders, you get the 28th pick. Now you get your chance to get like Donovan Ezaraku. You get your chance of getting Kenneth Grant, because he's probably not going to be picked until like late first. You can get Jaron Harmon.
And you get another corner in the middle of it. Like,
or you can go get like Nick Emenwari, like the safety out of South Carolina. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Got your chance to get 2 first rounders and build this defense the way that you want, plus the rest of your picks. Like that'll give you 7 picks total in the draft. So
and like I said, there are people that are built for business, and there are people you want no business with, and that's why you're starting to see that with some of these teams. But this is why the roster construction is the way that it is. It really is interesting. But, man, I'm so glad to be back and at least talking about this. We're going to take a break from here. But I do want to explain about two teams that I think have really been they've actually been very, very patient with themselves. And where something in the middle of free agency and probably closer into the draft, they are seeing that nobody else is. Those two teams I'll talk about here after the break. But it is fascinating to kind of see what free agency has been looking like and the types of businesses these GMs and these teams have been proposing. Well, folks, like we said, summertime is right up around the corner. We've already just experienced the spring forward with time changes. It's getting darker out early in the morning, and sun don't come out here in Denver until like right around 8 o'clock. So lots is changing, but the weather's getting nicer. The weather's starting to now be favorable to a lot of events that you could be checking out all throughout the summer and even all throughout towards the fall. And that's where you use SeatGeek, the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. I can't wait for next month. Going to be going and seeing the Used late in April. That's going to be a fun one. And I've never been to the Ogden. So anywhere, any venue, or even just your sports arena or your stadium or wherever it may be for your favorite team, check out SeatGeek for yourself. Download it on your mobile device through Google Play in the App Store. And when you sign up and before checkout, don't forget to use the most important promo code to get you the best guarantee of a discount you'll never forget. That's promo code SnakeSports for $20 off of your first purchase of your first ticket. Think of it as like, my ticket to you to go in and experiencing a grand lifetime of an experience you'll never forget. Whether it's your favorite concert of your favorite artist, favorite sports team, you can't get enough of screaming and yelling and cheering on for your favorite team when they're winning, or even just, arts, comedies, whatever it may be. Whatever catches your attention, check out SeatGeek and book your tickets in the most trustworthy ticketing app today. It's SeatGeek.com on your mobile device. Google Play in the App Store. Snake Sports, $20 off is the promo code.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SnakeSports and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SnakeSports for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Snake Sports Talk Show is sponsored by Muscle Tech, with hundreds of supplements and vitamins to choose from, all packed with 100% all-natural proven ingredients. You can be sure that Muscle Tech will give you the edge and the boost to train and look like your fit and healthy best, whatever your goals are. Try Muscle Tech today and use promo code SnakeSports to save 30% off your purchases.
So there's talks about two of these teams who I think underrated is not really getting talked about a whole lot. And that is the Philadelphia Eagles and the LA Chargers. So let's talk about the Eagles. What I was saying about them, and I think this is truthfully remarkable, because it's why Howie Roseman is so good at what he does. Because Howie just finds a way to get the best deals available, also understands the state in which the Eagles find themselves in certain positions, and then goes and finds big-time players, and it don't even matter exactly who it is. I mean, he just finds a way to make those deals happen and get the players that are so impactful. I mean, you watch this with Nakobe Dean and Nolan Smith and Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. So what Howie Roseman did, at least throughout this offseason so far, is, and I talked about this because this was important, to me, the Eagles made the right decision. And what they did was they re-signed linebacker Zach Bond. They went and got another one because it's better for depth. It's better to go with than without. But the reason Zach Bond was honestly the most important signing than it was on Josh Sweat, the edge rusher, and even Milton Williams, is because look at this draft. Ask yourself, is there a linebacker who could start and be impactful in this draft right now? Or how about edge rushers? There's plenty of them. James Pierce, Mike Green, Shamar Stewart. There's a bunch of them. There's a lot of them. But what the Eagles ask themselves is who is one that we can replace in the draft because we got such an excellent front line? And who is one that we need to sign that we know we cannot afford to lose? We don't have anybody to replace that linebacking position. Especially last year, the past draft, you drafted Jeremiah Trotter, his son. And, and that's where you re-signed Zach Bond. You gave him his money, and I think it was money well spent, in my opinion. And that's the part where Howie Roseman is smart for this, because he'll let some of the players go, and they all went and got their money's worth. Josh Sweat got his money. Milton Williams got his money. All of them did. But yet you still find ways to get hidden gems in the draft. That's what makes him so remarkable. And they develop them in the draft. And so in the end, I mean, think about this. You cut Darius Slay and you traded C.J. Gardner-Johnson to the Texans, who, by the way, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, he is impactful to a T, but most people weren't quite, thinking about like the locker room, and that was the part that I think was kind of a little bit edgy, but they traded him, and look at exactly what they got. They went and got Adoree Jackson. Tell me that's not Howie working at his best. And then not to mention, they lost Kenneth Gainwell. What did they get back? A.J. Dillon. And the writing is all on the wall. This is why he's one of the top best GMs in the NFL. Now, another team, and I thought this was interesting because I'm here to share something from it, because Colin Cowherd seems to believe that this team could actually win their division this year. So the Los Angeles Chargers, what a lot of people did not understand and realize, and I've had to talk with this with many of the Charger fans all around, but the Chargers this offseason, what did they do? They went and got Najee Harris. Question marks are on for, are they going to re-sign J.K. Dobbins? Because you let Gus Edwards go. You go and get cap money. You let Joey Bosa go. He's now with the Buffalo Bills, and he did basically like a Sean Merriman type of thing. But you saved $25 million. You started this offseason with over $90 million in cap space. And then in the end, you go and get some of these impactful players. Like you go and get Najee Harris. You go and get Dante Jackson, the corner from Pittsburgh. And hey, listen, Jesse Minter has a hand on this identity. Now, the only worst part is they let go of Poona Ford. He signs a 3-year deal, and he was arguably one of the best defensive tackles in the game, the best fronts. And then you go and re-sign Bradley Bozeman, who last year, amongst all centers in the league, was ranked 32nd. Sign him to a 2-year deal. Chargers fans were pissed. But in the end, they went and re-signed Tierre Tart. They went and got Deshaun Hand, and they went and got the defensive tackle from Arizona. So all of this means is that these are all these 1-year prove-it deals. And that's one of the things most people are not understanding. Colin Cowherd, on the other hand, seems to think very highly about the Los Angeles Chargers this next up-and-coming season.
I do think Harbaugh Herbert is incredibly compelling.
I think they're going to win their division.
You think they're going to beat the Chiefs?
Yeah, I think the Chiefs. Listen.
Have you told Nick this yet?
Yeah, but, he didn't hear it.
yeah, no, I know.
There was static in his ear. He didn't really hear it.
All right.
But I do think to win like they did last year, they went from the worst defense to like the third best. It's like, okay, that was all coaching. It was the exact same players. I just think they also will draft as well as anybody in this sport for the next 2 years because of Harbaugh's connection to college football. It's one of those built-in advantages, and I think it will pay dividends again this year.
And you know what? He could be onto something, because Jim Harbaugh, and not a lot of people really think of Jim Harbaugh in a high regard because, let's face it, sorry to have to, add Chase to this mix, but we know a lot of Ohio State fans probably would think differently. But either way, Jim Harbaugh is the kind that focuses on the young talent, which is a lot of them up in college. You've seen exactly how he's talked about his Michigan kids. You've seen exactly how he's talked about Joe Alt or even Ladd McConkey, all these guys. He's paid attention so much into the college football world, from the SEC, the Big Ten, and everywhere else. And he's had such good high praises for a lot of these young talents. And the thing that Chargers fans don't seem to understand, at least some, not all of them, but some, is that Jim is going to work his roster internally. That's the way he does business. Okay, and he's going to work up his style of guys. So to me, when you look at Joe Ortiz and you look at Howie Roseman, these are both very smart GMs who understand and know what they're doing. Oh, and by the way, guess who they brought back? They brought Mike Williams back to the Chargers. What does that tell you? That tells you a lot, that they've got plenty of depth. Now, is this potentially a reunion for the Chargers with both Mike Williams and maybe potentially Keenan Allen? We don't know yet. We also know Cooper Kupp's available. Stephon Diggs is available. But what it tells a lot of it is that they know that they've had a lot of catching issues with Quinn Johnston. They've also had a bunch of things that didn't quite work to their advantages. But if the floor was 11-6 last year, it's like I said to everybody, imagine what the ceiling looks like for the Chargers this up-and-coming year. I'm not over here trying to, throw fandom or anything. I just look at, with free agencies, I ask the whys. And if I get a reasonable response behind the whys, then you know why I respect them in these businesses. Chase of the news.
This is the Hot Press.
I'm telling you, man, these GMs, this is the part where not a ton of people, if you ever done business like this, because again, it's like, I compare this to like the housing market, right? Because a lot of people are going to buy these, billion-dollar homes and, and all the rest of them. When you get some of these smart guys that are house flippers that are going to go and get some of these foreclosed houses, they're going to flip them, and then they're going to turn around and sell them high. It's the same mentality. Buy low, sell high. And then what you do is that you look at these qualities. I don't know, man. Something is in the works. When I got that notification Mike Williams came back to the Chargers for $6 million, I felt so good about it. Because here's the difference. You saw Mike Williams at $20 million a year. Barely any depth. And you saw how that Chargers team looked like. Where now as you got Mike Williams on $6 million with so much depth on this. I can only imagine a reunion coming here. I'm telling you. I think it could happen.
Yeah. It's very interesting, but In terms of the news, we have seen a lot of teams and what they've showed their hand in free agency with what they're going to do in the draft. And with a lot of these teams, there's a lot of them with new head coaches, the Bears, the Saints, the Jets, and the Patriots. Now, the Patriots came into the offseason with the most cap in the NFL with $156 million, and they now have $35 to $40 million left to spend. They have spent their entire cap on defense to build up that defensive side of the ball. Now, it is more known right now that they are going to go offense in the draft with their first pick, either going with Calvin Banks on the offensive line to help protect Drake May, or they're going Tedoroa McMillan as a wide receiving option for Drake May as well.
So this is what was the hardest part when I had to figure out about the New England Patriots, because they released David Andrews, who, by the way, just like Joe Thuney, well-respected offensive lineman, won multiple Super Bowls during the tenure with Tom Brady, and at the same time, that's a pivotal piece to your offensive line is the center. And there was a bunch of them. I saw the guy Bradbury got released by the Vikings, the former first round 2019. So there's a lot of those available cheap priced offensive linemen that you can still go get. Whether it's you go and address that in the draft, or maybe you go and get somebody on the low end side of the free agency. And I think that's why a lot of people, and what they don't realize is the ones that don't make noise in the first 2 days, or the second and the third days, are the ones you should be afraid of. Because those are the ones that they turn around because they wait for the base values to get lower and lower and lower and lower, and then all of a sudden they become steals. That's the one thing. The Baltimore Ravens were known for this for a long time, because you got to think about it. 13 years with their entire front offices that has worked like this, that's insane. But this is why it's the method that they've used for so long, and it's worked. Now, it hasn't won the Super Bowl since 2012, but it's worked. Right. And again, you find a lot of these guys that are like high ends. To me personally, it's funny, and I was talking about this. Do not be surprised if the New England Patriots draft Travis Hunter. I've been saying that for a few times, because where they are sitting at, you need a wide receiver, at least somebody that's got the juice. I'm not saying he is the over-the-top receiver, but what I'm saying is that because of his stature and what they've got with Demario Douglas and Kayshon Boutte and, Kendrick Bourne, they're trying to work with these receivers. I don't think they're terrible, but I do think they're not as top end. They're probably number 1s, 2s, and 3s in New England, but they're not that in any other team. They're probably high or low, probably about a third or fourth option on these, in these rooms. So I just think with Tedoroa McMillan, because I've heard a lot of that about his draft stock, and I don't know, maybe it might be falsified. I don't know, but there's a bunch of teams that are willing to shake up this draft. I'm going to see so much chaos in this draft. I don't know, because it's like you're drafting for the depth, you're drafting for the impactful pieces, but you already know the most impactful pieces, not quarterback. So it's like there's so many different options from here.
And we may see the most trades in this draft that we have seen in a long time, and possibly the most trades in the first round that we've seen in such a long time, because you got teams like the Vikings who have 4 picks throughout the entire draft, no third round pick, no fourth round picks, 1 second, 1 first, and 2 fifths, and that's it.
That's right.
And then they got nothing else to work with, so they could be getting extra picks in the draft, and somebody could trade back into the first round. It's going to be very interesting. I wanted to stick with football, but we've got some other news across the other leagues that we got to get to. And speaking of that, we got baseball that we need to get to. The New York Yankees ace starting pitcher, Garrett Cole, is now out for the entire season because he is about to have Tommy John surgery. And that puts a huge blow on the Yankee starting rotation.
Yeah, what a crushing blow for the Yankees, truthfully. And it's funny because this is why you signed Max Fried. This was specifically why you did this. Because barring that some injury to your rotation was going to happen, and it just so happens to be Garrett Cole. But it's like I was telling everybody, and then not to mention, Giancarlo Stanton's also been out, and so he's going to be out for quite some time. But the deal of it is, I still don't think that the Yankees are truthfully like on the bottom end of things. Because think about what they got. They got Paul Goldschmidt, they got Cody Bellinger, they went and got Devin Williams, the closer, and then they go and get Max Fried. And on top of Carlos Rodon, now you do have Marcus Stroman, and who knows how that chemistry will work. I mean, he pitched for the Mets. He understands how hectic that the New York crowd can get. So he has a lot of experiences in the AL East, even with Toronto. But I just look at this as I just don't think that the Yankees are going to be this terrible still. I think that because you ended up getting more quality depth, it's just like when we watched a lot of these teams in the free agent market in the NFL. What is most important to you? I see this with baseball. The star power you're going to pay 15 years for, like Juan Soto, or you got to get the replicas of each of their abilities. It's Moneyball talk. That's why the Yankees did this for this reason, because you're not going to pay Juan Soto a hefty amount on that contract, but then all of a sudden they go and get all these impactful players, and it's all for a reasonable price. That rotation from there, needed to be fixed. But they did it. They got it, and I feel like that the Yankees could still be pretty impactful this season. I don't care for their manager, but I still think they'll be impactful in the American League this year.
Yeah, and speaking of more baseball news, Dave Roberts signed a contract extension that keeps him with the Dodgers for another 4 years, and it was well-deserved. You know, he's had, 3 World Series appearances over the past 5 years. He's had 2 World Series wins over the past 5 years, and now you have one of the better lineups and just overall teams in baseball. Not to mention you've got your biggest star coming back off an injury to where he is now going to be back in the starting rotation, and you are going to be looking at one of the most deadly teams in the league this year in the LA Dodgers.
Yeah, I'm telling you now, and what's funny is like even parts of my family that they're Dodger fans. Even my wife's a Dodger fan. We've watched a bunch of Dodger games. It's funny because I will be in Vegas next week, and that's when the start of that Tokyo series starts up, March 18th. So that's going to be interesting, and it's right there up on birthday week. So I'm excited for that. And again, the Cubs. What's funny is they have this team anticipating 85 to 90 wins this upcoming season. The Cubs will actually be pretty improved, but when you look at Dave Roberts, there's been some questionable calls. Truthfully, there has been, but either way, you're winning the division almost 9 out of 10 times every year, and
because the Rockies suck. The Giants haven't been anything to scoff at over the past couple years, and the what are they? Who else is in their division?
The Padres. The Padres are really the only one that you're thinking of right now. That's the only one you're kind of focused up on. But I'm telling you, I think again, the Dodgers will probably win this division again. Who knows what the playoffs will look like in the end? But I think because you have such a hefty roster like this with the with the rotation, the lineup, it's so hard to get past this team. But you got to think about it. Look at the rotation this year. I mean, in the postseason, they had bullpen guys coming in the rotation. And now you've got Roki Sasaki, you got Yoshioka Yamamoto, you've got Blake Snell, and you've got Shohei Ohtani pitching this year. They're locked. They're locked for me, of course, but that's hard to really get past.
Oh, yeah. And I think the biggest piece of baseball news that we've got to discuss, and it came across earlier, and I don't know if you saw it, but the owner for the Tampa Bay Rays is backing out of the building of the new stadium, and he's going to go back to Tropicana Field in 2026.
Tampa fans are not happy about this. And especially
baseball fans are not happy. The owners, the other teams are.
That roof collapsed. at the same time, it's like this is the unfortunate part of living in Florida is because you are like susceptible to tropical storms. But that's the thing. I know many older folk retire there and their skins are much more clearer. They get better, blood flow and skin care, and it's a better place to retire in. But because of that, you got tropical storm. We were in the middle of hurricane season when my wife and I went on a honeymoon cruise. Like, it's not fun. But, it's the kind of thing that you know what the repercussions are. But that's the part that, like, in Tampa Bay, it's interesting. And this year, they're going to be playing at Steinbrenner Field. Like,
it's 20,000 people. That's it.
Yes, and that's why I'm like, it is exciting to get them into Steinbrenner because George Steinbrenner did so much for this organization because that's what plugged them in so he could see Yankee games in St. Pete. But because now you're backing out of this whole thing, Rays fans are pissed, baseball fans are pissed.
The owners of the other teams are trying to get this guy out of there.
God. But this is why, when you look at these ownerships, there are guys that know baseball and guys that aren't meant to be baseball guys. Mm-hmm. But, by the way, did you see the unveiling of Nashville's team? It just came out of New Era.
Nashville's getting a pro baseball team?
As a little hint. Yeah, they got new hats now. If you go and look at lids, something's cooking up in the works in Nashville.
Interesting. Nashville getting a pro baseball team would be interesting.
Well, here's the thing. They were talking about the amount of attendance that was from the Nashville Sounds, which, of course, when you're living in Nashville, Tennessee, you're going to go down the streets of Knoxville and go and watch the Tennessee Volunteers, whether it's Lady Volunteers, basketball, football, whatever it may be, or you're going to go to Bridgestone Arena and watch the Predators play because I've heard Smashville gets nuts down there. It's a fun time.
When I went down there for my bachelor party, it was a hectic time in Nashville. And I'm telling you what, like, it was one of the craziest. And you see the attendance that the Titans games get down in Nashville and what they see. So it's going to be interesting to see what the team is, what the colors are, and what the name is going to be. I think the Tennessee Mountaineers would be, the best name that you could think of. But the last little bit of news that I've got, it's NBA news. De'Aaron Fox is getting season-ending surgery on a pinky finger where he tore a ligament in his finger. Now, to me, like, I'm wondering, like, is that really necessary because it's your pinky? But
well, here's my deal. Whatever injury that it may be, because here's the thing: the Spurs have a good thing going right now. The last thing you want to do is waste your player for the next year, because again. Was this going to be playoff? Not necessarily. It was really going to be improving the wins, right? Winning the games that you should. And on top of that, like, you have a very good veteran voice in Chris Paul. You've got now De'Aaron Fox that you traded for. And then you've got Wemby. And you've also got, you've got other impactful players. So that's why that I'm like, playoffs was not even in the category for the Spurs this year. It was more of, you know what Victor Wembanyama is, now go get him help. This year was about improving wins to now next year, and here's the other thing too, Greg Popovich is going to be gone this next year. So I think it's more of just the farewell tour for Greg Popovich for everything he's done. But a lot of this is now next year you got to get the right guy in this building and now go for the playoffs. You got the guys now. Like, you could go and get more in free agency, but you have the core pieces. Like, at least De'Aaron Fox, he's going to love playing alongside with Wemby. I'm telling you, that's why I'm like, go get what you need so I can have you available next year. And next year, I'm going to give you more players. I'm going to give you more stability and personnel, and then that's where we're going to go in for that run. I'm telling you, I don't even think it's a bad thing for the Spurs. I don't. I think it's smart. All right, Chase with the news.
This is the Hot Press.
About 3 minutes left up on here, but I wanted to basically say this. So, talking about Aaron Rodgers. So this is interesting. So a former GM came out and basically had an article, but then also had a photo of Aaron Rodgers in Malibu Beach. He's there with his blanket. He's got his headphones on. Those are actually pretty beautiful waters out there. I'm not even going to lie to you. I was in San Diego when I proposed to my wife at the time, but the problem was that there was so much overcast. I wanted to be there at Pacific.
Why did she say yes? That's weird.
You know what? Hey, you know what? It's because San Diego kept it classy. That was the perfect spot. Dinner was paid for. I had 2 more drinks on top of the 2 that was comped and dessert. Come on. How could you say no to that? But the thing is that Aaron Rodgers, what we're seeing is that Aaron is acting more of the actor than he is of acting like the reliable worker here. Because the NFL is a consistent structural business. Because you get the schedules that come out. You get the draft. You get the depth charts. You get all these schedules. And on top of all of that, you're hoping that you're present. And at the same time, you have a straightforward answer. Because business is business. Nobody is going to waste their time on someone that's not ready to make a decision. So the report was from a former GM is that Aaron Rodgers is holding 2 teams hostage. That's the Giants and the Steelers. You know what he basically said? When the Steelers asked him to basically say, hey, we're going to give you this contract. We want to know if you are up for it, if you are ready. And basically what Aaron Rodgers had to say, what typically Aaron Rodgers would do is give me about 4 weeks and I'll give you an answer. What?
By then the draft would be here.
By that point, you know what I would do if I am a business person? I'm ripping the contract and saying, all right, we're moving on. Sorry. I may go and try to go and get Russ, or maybe I might go and find my next successor in the draft because the Steelers, they just brought back Mason Rudolph.
And they're looking at Jackson Dart heavily.
All right, but look, I'm sorry, but this is a crash out waiting to happen in this Pittsburgh organization.
Yes,
so you're telling me
I'm looking forward to it.
You're probably going to be looking forward to Mason Rudolph having to deal with all these chirpings in the locker room, and the only way to solve that problem with that migraine is literally watching Myles Garrett just literally concave his head in.
Dude, it is time for the Steelers to have a terrible season for the next 10 years.
I just think, and unlike the Cowboys, which was a great institution, that they're starting to kind of fall apart, but they had a reality check. Hopefully they get things right because now Rico Dowdle's gone, and he's gone to Tennessee, and they went and settled for Javonte Williams, who's, after his injury, he's looked slower for a runner. I don't get it. But the thing of it is that Aaron Rodgers, we're seeing him be the actor, okay? And he's not even, like, this is the funny thing. You're acting like the actor while Tom Cruise has another Mission Impossible movie out. And then also Keanu Reeves is doing another John Wick series. Wait, you're going to wait 4 weeks for me to give you an answer? What, are you going to be up in Malibu, or you're probably going to be up in international waters smoking ayahuasca, or do whatever you need to? Maybe search your aura and find exactly what you need to help you get the answers.
And you wonder why Brady had so much success, because he focused on the football rather than focused on everything else.
Big Ben, they've had successes. And that's the part that even Eli Manning, who we don't even consider a first-round Hall of Famer, I get it. You know, I don't consider it either, but he won 2 Super Bowls. You know, even if he wasn't the most dominant quarterback, but did you think that he would take 4 weeks off? No. No competent employee would literally do that. If you got an offer on the table, like I'm telling you right now, did you see Stephen A. Smith's contract? 5 years, and for every single year, it's $20 million per year. Could you imagine if ESPN or any other, network literally offered me that money? You think I'm just going to turn around and say, give me about 4 weeks to sit on this thing, and then we'll talk? You would be smacking me in the face, Chase. You would literally be like, Jake, what the hell are you doing?
I'll take the money and run the show.
Of course, because they love our show. I mean, the money's going to speak for itself, but they love our show. It's like, come on, man. Like, but I think that's why we're moving into this cycle with Aaron Rodgers. I don't understand. And if you're going to honestly do this, why are you still playing football? Why are you still doing this? That's why I'm like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But if you're going to go out in your Malibu trip and literally, I don't know, he's probably listening to Joe Rogan, maybe listening to Pat McAfee because he loves that guy, probably listening to his podcast or whatever he's doing. Or maybe he's listening to, some meditation music, whatever the hell he's doing. I mean, this is a structural business. You cannot just say, 4 weeks? No, I'm closing the door. I'm sorry. That's exactly how I would be as a boss because I don't have time to wait for and act desperate to go and sign these guys. The only reason, because Pittsburgh, if you literally sign him, can we relocate WrestleMania to Pittsburgh and the headliner would be DK Metcalf and George Pickens? And then sitting there is going to be Pat McAfee and Aaron Rodgers calling the whole thing. Hilarious. That's a crash out of the century. This is why I'm a little scared of Pittsburgh's chemistry. That's why I'm like, I don't even know if it worked. Now, the Giants, the only thing I fear about with the Giants is Brian Dable. Great coach. Joe Shane, I could give a rip about. But Brian Dable's a smart coach. If you do not think of this clearly, it's weird. But, yeah, insane. Good show. Good to be back. Back up on it. Really happy and excited to be back up on it, man. And again, I think this is going to be fun being in this new environment. I can't wait for it. But we definitely got to wrap things up, guys. With myself and Chase here at On the Show, we appreciate all of you guys for hanging out with us. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys in the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care and see you later, folks.